the reason why we're talking about the Gap One tonight, the Benzinger Gap One. I mean, this is a newish model that came out at some point early last year, I believe. Um, but Watchfinder, with all its greatness, did a review or a discussion about the watch, and they do a great job with the macro shots, and Andrew's a great narrator, and it was just a really great video to see. And why not ask our resident watch friend Rick, who has one of these Gap ones, to come on this evening and talk about it with us, and let's get a little presentation. I got a little presentation going here, guys. Let me.
We're going
Oh,
high tech.
there we
Oh,
Ooh.
hey,
wow.
look, there we go. And that is,
Preparation.
yeah, and that is actually the picture of Rick's Gap One on his wrist. Rick, this piece came out, I think, at some point last year, like maybe early last year, or at least announced, maybe. Maybe it was at the tail end of 2022. I can't remember. But what I guess the best way to start off is, like, why what attracted you to this watch? Like, what was the appeal here? Had you ever owned a watch with a Benzinger dial before?
You know, I have to give you and the Bobby Legs Discord channel and this YouTube channel credit. I mean, I learned about this watch when it was released through all of you and through that method. And, like a lot of things, I contemplated and thought about it. And, you know how watch buys in the U.S. works. You got to put a
Hmm.
deposit down. And once you do that, you're committed. And then you've got to wait. And I think a lot of that I'm a dial aesthetics guy first.
Yeah.
Some people really love movements or are, really into certain case sizes or case shapes. But I just, I love various dials, love guilloche. And, Benzinger does such a wonderful job on the guilloche. Now I have another watch where he did the guilloche,
Mm.
the GOS watch, the Norskin watch,
Hmm.
and he did that there too, and that's equally beautiful. But you know, and I know you and others in here have owned Benzingers in the past, and different variations. He's got a couple of different companies, Jaeger and Benzinger, and a few different iterations of collaborators that he works with. But this watch, what really excited me was not only the dial, but the fact that it was a proprietary movement or a movement in partnership with Richard and Maria Habring, and to me that just elevated the whole game a little bit.
Hmm.
And I thought I would take a chance on it, so I put a deposit down and waited and waited and waited and waited, and I think it showed up mid year,
Yeah.
spring summer last year.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what I think, and speaking of that collaboration, I mean, like, Benzinger with his own brand, the Benzinger brand, you'll see a lot of, you'll see the 6498, the
Yeah.
Unitas DTA 6498, and he just basically makes that watch into that movement into something that's unrecognizable in its basic truest form, right? I mean, the engraving and all the stuff that he does. But this watch is a little bit smaller than your typical 42 millimeter case that will house the Unitas 6498. This is a, like you said, a proprietary movement. Now, is this like, we've seen Habring do this before. He's taken, I think it's like the Valjoux 7750, and kind of like deconstructed it and build it into his own modular type movement. Is this based on something else? I mean, I would imagine it's based on something. Um,
Yeah, I'd have to lean on Amon, I think, as more of a movement expert. But I'm sure that
This
this
is a
isn't something that
6498
was
base.
totally. Yeah,
it
yeah.
is. It is a
So
Yeah,
6498.
it's
it's
his.
modified by Richard and Maria.
Yeah, and
6498.
then further modified for this release. So
Yeah.
Yeah, because, and I mean, and that's interesting because the case is small. I mean, this is a 39 millimeter case.
yep.
So I'm sure that there was um, some heavy modification on there to make it fit. Speaking of fit, how does it fit? It looks like it could be a little bit on the thick side, but maybe it's just because of the smaller diameter. I don't know, but how does that fit on your wrist?
Yeah, very contemporary. It's 11.5 millimeters thick. So there you go. There you got the specs. And fits squarely. I've got a little bit of a hang up. It's not so much size, but when a watch kind of wobbles and sits lopsided on your wrist
Hmm.
a little bit, that bothers me. Sometimes it's just a matter of the adjustment, but this comes with a deployant strap, and
Yeah.
that helps get it nice and snug. It sits squarely. I don't find it to be too thick. I've owned a couple of Kadoki in the
Hmm.
past, and I
Hmm.
found those just to be a tiny
Yeah.
bit too thick for me. So this,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for yeah, and I think that just needs to be put in context a little bit. We're talking about, like, thick for like a dress watch, right? I mean, like, this is no
Yeah.
15 millimeter chrono, right? But for a dress piece, especially with the Kentucky, and I've had that same experience. I mean, I just thought that it was a little bit thick. I mean, it didn't really bother me, but I just noticed, like, it's a little bit thicker than you would normally expect. Now, I know this has the lugs appear to be straight, which is like a very German characteristic, but it's a short lug to lug, right? So it's not like a long lug to lug like you see with the wiry, long, straight lugs typically with German watches. But yeah, I mean, the lug to lug seems very, very short. So I feel like it almost it it, it doesn't sit on your wrist like a hockey puck, I would say, right? But I mean, but it just fits, it's just right, I would imagine.
I think it's just a very contemporary size.
Yeah.
My sweet spot's probably, you know, 38 to 42, and if you narrow it in, 39 to 41. So this just fits right in there. Every now and then I'll get a watch, and it's difficult when you order watches these days because in a lot of cases you can't try them on before you order
Mm,
them. And sometimes you're a little disappointed with one aspect of the watch. There was no disappointment in this, both the finish and the
yeah.
and the aesthetics, as well as the fit. And I've never once felt like it was too thick.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I got a few more questions, and guys, I don't want to, if you guys have questions, please jump in and chat as well. So you, I've known you for a few years, and I know you as a collector of some really fine independent pieces, right? I mean, I know you have your typical mass produced type pieces, right? I mean, you had Omegas, you had Rolexes in your collection, but you have a lot of, like, very specific, very very limited kind of independent pieces. How would you rank this, and especially with the thought of, like, how much it's actually priced at compared to some of these other pieces like the Wooten Lylands of the world and the Chopex and all these other brands that you're very, very familiar with?
Yeah, I think that's maybe the most surprising aspect of this watch is I just think that it looks and fits and is finished at a level that I would expect to be significantly higher than its price point. I think the retail is probably 13 or 14
Mhm.
now. It wasn't that when I ordered it. It was, 12 or something, right
Right.
around 12 when I ordered it. But to me, this, and I'd be interested. We've got other people on the panel here and other people in the chat with large collections. I mean, to me, this is a watch that is, the finish, the architecture, the beauty, the dial aesthetics. Certainly, to me, feel like a watch of at least twice the price.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Hey, Amin, Wolfgang, Marcus, if jump in if you have anything. So, I see a lot of design influences. Somebody's in the chat mentioning Roger Smith. They has that look on it in it for sure. Brigade hands. It feels like, when with that combination of a layout with that intricate, um, guilloche work. Like, I don't know. I feel like I could give it a pass for kind of borrowing a lot of design language from stuff here. You know what I mean? Like, and I know I'm hypocritical when it comes to that, but when I see, like, the work, when you see the work of the guilloche, and this is all hand done. This is rose turn engine. This is
Yep.
hand guilloche, right? This is not stamped. This is not whatever machinery they're doing. This is the real deal. And then when you flip it over in a case side, like, I feel like I mean, the movement side, I feel like, you know, be it hypocritical, I can give it a pass with some of the influences where I wouldn't give other watches and some other models a pass on design. Does that, you're a design, you're a dial guy. Does that even like bother you? And I'm not saying that it should or shouldn't. I'm just saying that some people will point it out, you know, and say that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I certainly didn't know that and didn't hear that when I committed to buying the
Yeah,
watch. Subsequently, I've heard it. And I don't think Jochen Benzinger has gone out of his way to dispute any of that.
yeah,
So I think that there probably is some intentional, design homage, borrowing, whatever. Doesn't bother me. I can't.
yeah,
I'll never have a George Daniels, Roger Smith type watch. So I'm fine with it.
yeah,
I think that it's very beautiful. I thought the movement was totally proprietary. So I'm sure, Marcus, I believe you. I just didn't have that understanding. And like Rob, I think, that it's 39 millimeters would be very, there had to be some significant modification, because this movement doesn't look like it's even completely filling the case, and a standard 6497 16498 would be
mm,
would be packed, like right to the edge, I think, of a 39 millimeter case. The design, I think that everybody, George Daniels, Roger Smith, like, they're taking heavy inspiration from Brigade dials. I mean, Roger Smith took a little shot at this on Instagram, and I took a little shot at Roger Smith because, he's not making, completely, uninfluenced dial designs either, right? He very much, like, literally picked up where George Daniels left off, right? And this is and George Daniels, again, very inspired by others too. Benzinger, I feel like, in this world of really famous watchmaking masters getting huge premiums for their work, he's like this extremely respected master of skeletonization and dial design, who, the hype hasn't lifted the prices to astronomical levels, right? Like, he's as respected a dial guy, let's say, for example, as, like, for example, when Joshua Shapiro speaks at Horological Society of New York, he puts Benzinger up as like a master, right?
mhm,
But if Josh Shapiro did this collaboration with Habring, I bet that there'd be more hype, right? It's just,
yeah,
for some reason, Benzinger, isn't these are still relatively affordable. So
yeah.
I think it's a ton of value.
Yeah, and I think leave it up to Watchfinder, bringing some attention to this, and we'll see. The prices of the Gap one has increased steadily over the last year, and I'm sure we're going to see further increase. One last thing from me, anyway, Rick, and it's hard to see in this picture, but the crown I find very, very interesting. The crown here, and I'll kind of put. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse, but the crown on the top, like the 2 o'clock position, I would say. It seems to be like a thick coin edge, but it's not like it's angled, right? Rick, it's not like your typical, crown where the knurling is directly perpendicular to the watch, right? It's almost like angled, uh, like a 45-degree angle, kind of.
Yeah.
How any kind of feeling? Does it feel different at all, or do you have to like?
I think it, intentional or not, or just happenstance, but I mean, I think it helps with it helps grip the crown.
Okay.
You know how some watches are buttery smooth and just,
Yeah.
super,
Yeah.
and then other watches have a little, takes a little more effort to to wind. You know,
Yeah.
this one falls in that latter category. It takes a little bit more effort to wind. So I think having, you know, a crown like that has a little bit of you know, that different texture actually helps.
Yeah, and if you guys, I mean, I apologize, I don't have a picture of it because I wanted to talk about it, a better picture. You can find one online, but it almost looks like it doesn't belong. Do you know what I mean? Compared to the rest of the case, right? I mean, the rest of the case is, you know, polished. It's kind of like straightforward, nothing crazy, but it's like an interesting twist, and no pun intended, to the rest of the case, that crown. And I dig it. I kind of like it.
Yeah, and the crown's at 2 o'clock,
Yeah, two
and
o'clock.
then at the traditional 3 o'clock spot, you've got a little
Date
you
pusher.
know, protected date pusher.
Yeah. Mhm.
So.
Right.
Hey, you
Right.
know, just a funny story, Rob, real
Yeah.
quick. I mean, you know, we
Sure.
talked about the watchfinder video, but
Yeah.
you know, last fall, I don't know, it was September or October, I did a independent
Yeah.
collection review with Tim Mosso of
Yeah.
Watchbox, and I took, you know, I had Grubel Forsey and David Toon and Gronefeld and FP Jorn. You know, the watch that he was most taken with,
This
the
one,
watch
right?
that he was personally both on camera and off camera. He spent a lot of time on camera
Yeah.
talking about it. But this is the watch, and part of it is, you know, hard to show Tim Mosso a watch he hasn't seen before. Well, he had never seen this watch before, but I think
Yeah.
he was genuinely, truly, very, very impressed with what was accomplished here. And he, you know, all of those great watches on the table, this is the one that he most admired, I think.
Yeah, and I remember seeing that in the video. I was like, he was like, hold up. He's like, what is, he's like, and he like, basically, that's what he locked eyes on, right? As soon as you guys started talking about your watches. And I found that very, very interesting too. Um, Now, here's some of the pricing, right? I mean, it's a little bit more than retail on some of these. The retail goes from like the high 12s to, I mean, I think the low 14s, depending on the dial that you get. And so, you know, some of these are maintaining their price, maybe going up a little bit more on the secondary. Now, these watches, you know, are limited. If you go on the Watch Buys website, each of the variations will say limited to 50 pieces. Now, I'll tell you this, and I'll show you. We're going to show you some other Benzinger watches in collaboration with Jaeger and Benzinger. Some of them, those, you know, for years has said limited to 50 pieces, and I know for a fact they made more. Um, but I don't know if that's like limited to watch buys 50 pieces. There is no like numbering on the back of the case, is there,
No,
Rick?
no numbering and no
Yeah.
serial number, and you know, you don't. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
pretty.
and I don't want to detract from. I don't mean to detract from that. I mean, I'm just saying that there is, if you are interested in this watch, I don't think your timeline is, you know, there's not too many people are going to find this watch, because maybe this is something that they just, a rabbit hole that they won't go into. But there is a chance that you can get that, I think.
And I'm not 100% certain, but I think when I ordered this, that the version that I have
Mhm.
was the only one that was introduced
Yep.
at that point.
Yep.
And then they subsequently introduced, you know, one, then
Mhm.
another, then another.
Yeah.
I think they're all beautiful. I know we've got somebody in the chat that's got the salmon. I think that's an absolutely very classy, stunning looking watch. I think all of these color combinations look very attractive.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Mr. Casio says, I love the absolute complementary opposites that Jordan pieces are versus the Gap 1. German 50. Chess says, in quotes. Joe Cheng likes the blue black Gap 1. Pretty sick. Yeah. Caliber saying, yeah, I remember Tim talking about the watch and how he liked it. Maison liking that salmon one. And look, you know, so for some of us, you know, at this price point, it may be something that's a little far off, but there's other watches out there that has Benzinger's involvement that is, you know, maybe more affordable. And I have a slide here. Oh, well, these are the other variations that I put up. And we can go back to this, but he, in partnership with Jaeger and Benzinger, there are a few watches here that, you know, are around the $5,000 range that are just beautiful done. The one up here on the top left, second, so in the middle, right there, the with the brigade hands and the Romans on the top there, is similar to a watch that I had, and the guilloche, and it was just beautiful. It was just beautifully done. It was beautifully done. The movement was nothing to write home about, in the sense that it was a mass developed unit, manufactured movement, that they found some old stock in, and he guillocheed and engraved the heck out of it, and it was just beautiful, just beautifully done. These watches, you can get them for around $5,000 on Watchbuy. So if you want to save up and get something that was created by a master guilloche artist, or whatever, however you want to call it. They're not, there's not too many guys like Joachim Benzinger out there, right? And I feel like this kind of artistic, handmade expression is gonna die out. I mean, like, it's just not too many people are picking up the torch with this. I mean, you have people out there